Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Slipstream Entrepreneurs podcast. I'm your host, Rich Wharton, and as per usual, my fabulous co-host, Hannah Brooks.
Oh, good morning. I say good morning because it's morning for our guests, but it's not morning for us. So I'm saying good morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's call it good morning. Let's just go good morning because
morning.
we are joined. We've gone international, ladies and gentlemen. We are worldwide. So we've got an international podcast now, which is incredible because we've got the one, the only Mark Boudreau. Did I say that right, Mark?
You did.
Oh, smashed it. So Mark is an incredible entrepreneur himself. He's created something really kind of special. And I don't want to take anything away from what he's going to talk about in his story and what he's doing now. But Mark owns the Motorsport Prospects. I believe I said that right.
Yes. Yeah.
I haven't got that wrong. It's a good start. So yeah, Mark, first things first, welcome.
Thank you. I'm doing great. Really appreciate the invite.
No, not a problem. Is it nice and warm over there in Canada?
It is quite nice. It is quite nice. Spring has sprung, and there was pretty much no snow this year, but no, everything is good. Everything is looking nice and warmer.
That's great to hear. It's great to hear. Unlike the UK, which kind of went, hey, summer's coming, and everyone got really excited, and now it's gone back to, or maybe let's cling on to winter. So we're going here, there, and everywhere. But Mark, first things first. Thank you for so much for coming on this podcast, taking the time out of your pretty early morning, to be fair to you. Firstly, I'd love to hear your story, and I'm sure our guests will. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and where you've got to today.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I'll be dating myself, unfortunately, but so my background is law. Initially, I was practicing law in Toronto, but I was always fascinated with racing, and it all started with, like most Canadians, with Gilles Villeneuve. When Gilles Villeneuve started racing, I kind of wondered, what in the world is this all about? Got hooked on F1. And then unfortunately, when Gilles passed, I quite honestly sat back and thought, do I really want to invest myself in this sport where people might not be around for the next year? But once you get hooked in, it's really hard to walk away. And I knew I was doomed when I started picking up Autosport. I used to have to reserve it at the local newsagent, and it was always 3 weeks late in Canada. So I used to pick it up religiously every week. And through Autosport, actually, is when I got interested in, always loved the sport of, I always loved F1, but I started becoming interested in the business of motorsport. That's what fascinated me. And initially, I used to try to track Canadians that were going over to Europe to race in F2 or F3. And it was very hard to get information on them. So I started thinking, how in the world do you end up in an F1 car? And that's kind of where the journey started. I just was interested in the business of it. I used to track, and this was before the internet, believe it or not, and tracking what was going on with a lot of these drivers was pretty tough. But eventually I started to build some contacts and followed up on what they were doing, what they were required to do. And then through that, of course, you learn about everything from sports car racing. I remember F3, when I first saw a picture of an F3 car in Autosport, I couldn't figure out what in the world this was, with this big intake that was sitting on the outside. And I was like, what is this car? That's not an F1 car. And I didn't even know that F2 existed, F3, F1600, all these other types of racing than sports cars. So, you start to learn about the whole ecosystem of motorsport. And that's kind of where it evolved from. And then Motorsport Prospects really was a result of meeting a lot of parents at racetracks. And, their kids were either racing or they wanted to race. And what amazed me was I couldn't understand how, we all know motorsport is expensive. That will never change. And parents were, in a lot of cases, investing the equivalent amount of sending their kids to university into race teams, for example, where they didn't really know anything about the team other than the fact that they might have met the team principal or read about them, or the team had won the championship last year, but the information that they had was next to nothing, and yet they were investing huge amounts of money. And I thought, maybe providing a directory of, for example, of teams would be helpful to parents, so that they can start doing some research, and it would be independent and neutral, and that's kind of how everything evolved. And now, Motorsport Prospects is really aimed at anybody who pays to race. I don't think Lewis Hamilton needs to go on to Motorsport Prospects to find a sponsorship consultant, but for sure a lot of people, and that includes anywhere from kids coming into cars from karts to amateur racers, or as some people call them, gentlemen racers. They're looking for teams, they're looking for management, they're looking for physical conditioning coaches, driver coaches, whatever it is. There's that ecosystem that, it's hard to find the information. So Motorsport Prospects really is pulling together all of those professionals into one digital platform, and it's giving people the opportunity to, research and connect with them.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic, and especially as there is a lot of information out there. Especially if you are a parent. Let's be honest, it's going to be the parent funding a lot of that kid's journey, and obviously if people want to make it to F1, you've got to start young. You have to start in karting in early teens latest to then be able to make it into cars by 15, 16 to then obviously push on. It is hard learning, and it's a fast-paced environment, and you need to be able to fund that. But it's great to have one place where people can come to with that information, with reputable people, because there's plenty of people out there who are not who they say they are. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
And especially when you're talking about large sums of money being passed about, it's not cheap racing. There isn't such thing as cheap racing, unfortunately, but it's kind of, there's a lot of people out there who will happily take your money, provide training or a service or whatever, and you not get the right results out of it, or what you're intending. So it's quite a dangerous area to be able to invest in. But it's great to have someone like yourself who's gone, actually, you know what? I'm going to take your reputation and put it on paper, and actually use the network that you've built over a long period of time as well, which is fantastic, and helping those people who need it the most. So, how, Mark? Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things, with my legal background, obviously researching is part of the job, and so I do a lot of due diligence on a lot of the listings. I actually am putting together a board of advisors of some pretty prominent people. So, for example, driver coaches. I'm not a driver, so I want feedback from people that are driver coaches, professional driver coaches, respected driver coaches, to give a little bit of feedback on different people, to just validate or verify that they're in fact, what they say they are. Because it's very easy to call yourself a driver coach these days. There's no real certification generally. So, it's important that the people on Motorsport Prospects are verified, are vetted, are legitimate. Because it's a money game. There's a lot of money involved. And I just want to make sure that people have the opportunity to be aware of what is out there, what it costs, what are the alternatives. When you send your daughter wants to become a doctor. So obviously the first thing you need to do is research universities and medical schools. And then you would probably narrow that down to a small group. And then you'd go and visit them and talk to them and and make sure your daughter feels comfortable in that environment. All these kind of things that you do. Then you obviously need to be looking at the financial parts of it. Where are their scholarships? All these kind of things. Well, the money that people invest in motorsport is not that far off from investing in medical school. And yet they do almost no valid research before they plunk down that money. So I just want to make sure that they at least are aware of the options, the pitfalls, the pros and the cons, all that kind of stuff. And then look, at the end of the day, it's their decision. You know, it's a lot of hard work. At the end of the day, if you're not fast, well, this is a debate, but you know, all the money in the world is not going to make you an F1 champion at the end of the day if you're not fast. So that part of it is important, but then the whole ecosystem, the other part is equally as important. And yeah, that's really what Motorsport Prospects is all about.
Would you say there's like a skill set that you have found is more sought after in that kind of front?
From the driver's perspective, yeah. Well, yes, actually, one of the things that Motorsport Prospects does is 5 days a week, there are regular columns that cover things like driver development, the business of being a race driver, sim racing with a heavy influence on of sim racing to the transition of sim racing to real racing. I cover sustainable motorsport and the business of motorsport, but the big thing on the business of being a race driver, that's the column on race driver business, is the skill set that people need. The biggest one is adaptability. You have to be able to adapt to different scenarios. Learning a new skill set. You have to be able to learn and embrace different tools. You know, we know from social media that, you know, TikTok is a big thing now and YouTube. Well, you know, 10 years ago, it would have been Facebook and I don't know, MySpace or something. You need to be able to adapt, but you have to put in the work, because even though it's really expensive, there are opportunities, I would argue, for anybody to be able to make it in motorsport if they're only willing to put in the work and the effort to, in a lot of cases, think outside the box. You know, I know there are drivers, for example, that are struggling to get a budget to race, so they've pivoted to content creation. And the ones that have been really good at it, ironically enough, have been able to raise that budget and then to go racing. There's drivers in sim racing that through their content creation on sim racing have been able to pivot and raise the money to race in real world racing. There are, I would argue, a lot more opportunities for somebody to stand out and make the jump into motorsport than there were certainly 5 to 10 years ago. And it's only expanding, but it's a lot of work. At the end of the day, it's a lot of work, and they really need to focus on, learning those skills and telling their story, because at the end of the day, sponsors want to be part of a story, a good story. And your job as a driver, aside from being fast on the track, is to be able to convince sponsors that your story is worth being a part of. And you know, and a lot of it is very basic, but a lot of it, and technology certainly it allows us to talk from, you know, across the pond, as I say. You can take that technology and you can put it to your own devices and use that to advance in your career, keeping in mind that it's also a people business. Racing is a people business, and you need to be able to translate what you can do on TikTok to what you can do in real life at a racetrack, meeting sponsors and representing them properly and all those kind of fun things that are part of racing. You need to be able to do all that stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but there are a lot of resources out there. I showcase them every week from some pretty prominent people that show you. For example, today there's a webinar that I've posted on business of being a race driver on how to customize a sponsorship deck. There are 2 podcasts including the one with Tim that you guys did on sponsorship and what to look for, what to do, how to approach potential sponsors. There's just tons of resources out there that you can utilize to make a career in racing. And I'm just trying to shine the light on as many as I can to give people the opportunity to race, because I love racing and I want to see the sport expand. And the more people racing, the better. Yesterday, I featured actually a UK-based disabled driver scholarship program. There are opportunities out there if you're willing to look for them and put in the time and the effort. And look, at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But deep down as a driver or potential driver, if you've put in the work to make it happen. If you did and it just doesn't happen, it just didn't happen. There are other alternatives that you can go to stay involved in motorsport. But if you didn't put in the effort, and that's on you. And that's really motorsport at the end of the day.
No, you're 100% right, Mark. And you know what? You've either read Hannah and my mind, listened to the podcast, or or just followed what we've been talking about, because it's exactly what we're here for. We've seen the link between racing drivers and entrepreneurs. It is so similar, if not the same. And like you said, it's the business of motorsport. It's what we're all about, is saying that actually treat your racing career like a business. This is what we're hammering home to drivers right now, like constantly having, I've had probably about 100 drivers come to me since the start of this year. Yeah, I'm talking within the last, nearly 4 months now. About 100 racing drivers have come to me and gone, can you help me find some money? And it's kind of like, I can't help everyone. I want to help everyone. And obviously now I'm finding a different way to go and help people, because I can only work with 1 or 2 drivers at a time at maximum. Right. But the thing is then going, look, actually there is a system to this. There's a way to work. And like you said, learning those skills. And it doesn't have to be just content creating. There's so many different skills out there that, you master that, you become good at what you do, and then you offer your services aligned with that. Go and find the people that need that sort of help. Find the problem, find a solution for that problem, and then go and give it to them. And entrepreneurs, like business owners who have got 1,000,001 things going on, if you can just take that one problem off of them and they pay you for it, then you've solved a massive, massive issue. And they can spend more time putting their time in where the money is. Like where is going to make them more money. You've taken off a problem for them. So happy days, they're going to give you that money. You use that money to go and fund your racing. There's so much more to it than just the can I just have some money because you're an entrepreneur and you've got some,
Well, and that's it, right? I mean, aside from maybe your parents or your family, nobody is involved in motorsport to make your dream a reality. No sponsor, quite honestly, unless they're a real racing fanatic, their job is not to fund your racing. Your job is to figure out how to help them grow their business. And by doing that, they're going to fund your racing. Sure, everybody loves to go into the paddock and meet people. That is a perk of being a sponsor. There's no doubt that's attractive. But at the end of the day, if you're not generating business for your sponsors, they won't be sponsors for much longer. And that's the thing that I think the mindset and a lot of what's in Motorsport Prospects in the blog is understanding that, because that's critical. First of all, it's not just a sticker on the car. You need to, like you said, you need to be a problem solver for businesses. And I always give a perfect example of a driver who approached a company that sold awnings. And they, the company was kind of like, well, really, first of all, you're racing in a lower level of the sport. There's really no TV. I'm not quite sure what it would be in for us to sponsor you. And the driver said, look, come to one race and we'll have a chat. So they came to the race, and then he pointed out all the awnings on all the transport trucks, on all the different booths and everything that were at the track. He said, each one of those is a potential customer for you. And that sponsor just kind of didn't realize. And that completely changed the conversation. And it's like, I can get you in this environment on a regular basis, and we can work together to approach these potential customers and convert a couple of them. And then, he worked it out. How many awnings would you need to sell to justify the spend that you're giving me to race? They worked out a number, and if I'm not mistaken, they hit that number and exceeded it.
Yeah. This is what really excites me. It's about spotting those opportunities. And like, I can walk through an environment and think, oh, so-and-so would be great. If only they can come and see it and have that chat with me and we can visualize it. In fact, me and Rich tomorrow are going to do exactly that with a race team, because we've got this amazing opportunity. And it's exciting to me. And I love it when I speak to a driver and I get them really infused about spotting those opportunities and what that could mean for this partnership between them and a sponsor. It's so exciting to me. And I will stop talking now because I could get quite into it.
But it is so cool, and it's so fundamental for young drivers, especially, to understand that. They're focused. And kind of, you do understand it. Their focus is on racecraft. Their focus is on how to be fast on the track. But they have to understand the other part of the business. And I mean, I can give you another example. A young driver in Formula 1600 here in Canada, who's now racing in the Indy Pro 2000 now. I managed to connect him with a suit sponsor. And the father basically told me, he said, look, I can only afford to fund this for so long. At some point, he's going to have to learn how to take the next step. And what was great, and what I've talked a lot about on the site, is how the father made sure that the son was involved in these negotiations, that he spent time with that sponsor, away from the father, to kind of instill in him a bit of independence, to be able to represent himself properly without, because you see that a lot with kids racing. They're constantly looking at their parent as affirmation, or what should I say, or what should I do. They have to essentially push them out and learn. They have to learn how to fly on their own. The earlier the better. So these are fundamental skills. How many times have you seen at a track a young driver who's got their phone and they're staring at their phone when they're not either in debrief or preparing for the race? I will literally walk up to some of those kids and say, put down your phone. You're a race driver. Zip up your suit and go walk around. You're on a support series for some bigger series. Introduce yourself. Racing people love to talk about racing. You're a driver. You got an in right off the bat. Tell your story, and you never know. And I mean, I don't want to spend too much time, but you never know where that could lead, because I have examples, tons of examples of people who did just that, who focused on little micro sponsors, introduced themselves, and then got a call. Oh, by the way, I met you last year at a race. We have a car available. The promoter needs to have at least 10 cars on the track. We've only got 8. I have a car available. If you can get here, you can race it. That's all I can offer you. But look, it's an opportunity that you wouldn't have had if you didn't introduce yourself. So networking, telling your story, all those things are really, really critical. And I'm a big networking guy. Learn how to network and be able to translate. LinkedIn and things like that are great. I love LinkedIn. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to introduce yourself in person to somebody, look them in the eye, shake their hand, and somewhat eloquently explain what you're doing and why you're racing and tell your story. Those are all really important skills, and the ones that learn it will succeed, and the ones that don't won't. It's that simple.
100%. And the funny thing is, Mark, is everything you're talking about is what Hannah and I talk about all the time. We've got our own community for racing drivers, the Slipstream Entrepreneurs Community. It is simply for racing drivers to understand these skills. We're creating a course for that as well. And it's something that both of us have done separately for quite a while. And actually, it was motorsport that brought us together. Like, Hannah and I didn't know each other. Well, it was probably about 3-4 months ago now.
Yeah.
We actually only met. And we've
Recently.
got 4 businesses running together, which has the potential to scale into multi-million-pound businesses, each individual one. And we just think like this is incredible, the journey that we've gone. We would never have met if it weren't for motorsport, which was unbelievable. And the thing is, for us, the skills that we've learned, I've spent, over 10 grand in courses to learn a lot of these skills. We're now teaching those skills to people. Networking is a massive one. Talk problem solving, what problems you solve, storytelling, as you've mentioned, telling your story. You're in the, not just I'm a racing driver, I drive really quickly around the track, I think you should sponsor me. Tell them about your background. Tell them about how your parents gave up everything. We've had a driver who told us that his parents left Australia to then travel to Europe and moved everything out to come and allow him to be a racing driver. Like, tell people your background, your story. What challenges have you overcome? What challenges are you suffering right now? What can you do? What makes you different from everyone else? And then the be all end all for me is that sales skills, like being able to sell, because at the end of the day, sponsorship is sales. You have got to sell what you're doing and how you're going to help that individual, that business owner, that entrepreneur, in exchange for their money to be able to fund your racing. How are you going to serve them and provide them value? And that for us, I can't get worked up because I'm so passionate about it. But that's the thing, is like, if you master these individual skills and combine them all together, you become a powerhouse. And when you realize about selling, you realize that money is just a number. If you've mastered these skills and you can get 10K to go and race, you can do it for 100K. You could do it for $1 million. The numbers are bigger, the value you provide is bigger, but it is exactly the same process all the way through.
Right. And when you talk about story, I always say the same thing. Everybody has a story. Some people like, I don't have a story. No, everybody has a story. You literally just have to sit down, and I always recommend write it out. Physically write, a skill that has sadly kind of diminished over the years. But when you write, you tend to think more.
Yeah.
And then and trust me, you can build that into a story. And, going back to Motorsport Prospects, which is something you guys definitely should be a part of as far as a listing, because Motorsport Prospects allows people to build that ecosystem that they need or can use in order to succeed. So if you're looking for people that offer sponsorship consultants, it's there. They have a listing in the directory. If you're looking for a mental conditioning coach, huge part of the sport, they're in the directory. If you're looking at advice on how to do your sponsorship deck, there are articles in there. There are people in the directory that provide that service. Building a team is extremely important in motorsport, not just on the track, but off. And you will learn about these different services, these different professionals. I call it B2D. So instead of B2C, it's business to drivers. These are people that are there to help you, and you can evaluate them. You can store their information in your account as you're building a list of, let's say, physical conditioners. And then you can then investigate a little bit more about that. The interesting part of Motorsport Prospects now is it's actually also becoming a B2B service. I just worked with a client who was looking for a motorsport lawyer based in Montreal, because they had a client that was doing a motorsport event and they needed waivers done. So I connected them with a lawyer, a motorsport lawyer that could help them with that. So I'm actually not only just doing business to drivers, I'm doing business to business within the motorsport ecosystem. So, you get excited about what you guys are doing, and like I get excited about what I can do, and I'm just touching the surface with Motorsport Prospects. I mean, I think I'm redoing all the listings, and I have 890 motorsport professionals in my database. That's just for the services section that I have update and load into the site. So the ecosystem is massive, and I'm constantly adding to this database. So yeah, it's if you want to succeed, the tools are there and the people are there for you to succeed. Is motorsport expensive? Absolutely. And it will always be expensive. There's a capital cost involved in running a race car. I mean, it's just part of the business. But don't use that as an excuse or a crutch. It's just another challenge that you have to overcome. And there are the tools and the people that will allow you to overcome that. You just need to know who they are. You need to be aware of what's out there. And then you need to do it. You need to just, using the Nike slogan, just do it. Motorsport Prospects, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And then just one day I thought, you know what? I'm a bit of a geek. I know how to do websites. I'm just going to do it. And I made mistakes. I stumbled. I didn't. But at the end of the day, I did it. There's something out there. And once it's out there, usually you're willing to work to keep building on it. But you can sit there and paralysis by analysis as a driver. Oh, I'll never make it to F1, or I'll never be a pro. And well, what are you doing to actually try to make it happen? Just sitting there complaining is not going to do anything. You need to be actively engaged. And, I always ask the question, especially to young drivers, what do you want to do? I want to race in F1. I said, okay, what happens if that won't happen? Oh, well, they don't think about it. The answer I'm waiting for is, I want to be a professional race car driver. I want to race wherever I can, but I want to be a pro. I want to be paid to race, and I'll race sports cars, I'll race single seaters, I'll race touring cars, I'll race rally, I'll do whatever. That's what I want to be. Usually that kid will end up succeeding, whereas the one who says, I want to be the next Ayrton Senna, most often will not, just because they don't understand what it is they really want. And then when you don't understand what you want, you can't make it happen. You need to understand what's out there, what the process is, and then do it and have fun with it. Don't forget, it's racing. It's racing. You're racing a car. You're racing a bike. Like, how cool is that? I've talked to so many team principals who have worked with young drivers, and they say, look around. Half of these kids are miserable. And it's a serious business. There's no doubt. And it's stressful. There's no doubt. But you're racing cars. If you can't, don't forget that. It's fun. And if it's not fun, don't do it. Because you can't work. We know all the work involved in running a business. And if you're not enjoying it, it's a miserable thing to do because it's so much work. So once you enjoy it, you know what happens. You tend to all of a sudden realize, holy moly, it's like midnight. And I've been like plugging away, doing my work. I just didn't notice because, I love this stuff. So, drivers have to remember that it's a lot of work. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of opportunities, but you have to enjoy it at the end of the day. And if you don't, find something you're passionate about and then do that. Because motorsport, it's not fueled by gas, it's fueled by passion. And, somebody will say, well, yeah, and money. Yes. But if you don't have the passion, you won't be able to raise the money. It's as simple as that.
To quote a entrepreneur that we both follow, me and Rich, love your journey. Just love the journey. It's not just
absolutely
getting to the first place. It's about all of it. Soak it in, just enjoy it. Yeah.
It's fundamental. Racing is an inherently selfish sport. It's a It's a luxury at the end of the day. But you need to be passionate. If this is where you want to make your mark, then make it happen, do it. And you'll hear that from so many, you talk to team principals. What's the fundamental thing that you're looking for in a driver? Work ethic. I want to make sure that they will put in the effort to work. The ones that will stick around after the race and spend time with the mechanics, sit in the garage, help out, offer to help out, go and pick up sandwiches for them, whatever it is. They're willing to put in the effort. They go into the factory on the weekends when they're not racing, or during the week, or at night. All these little things, want to go on meetings with sponsors, want to introduce themselves to sponsors, spend time with fans. And, there are always fans. You could drive in 1600. The fact is, you're a race car driver. There will be people that want to talk to you because they spend the time with those people. They put in the effort. All those things, you won't do it if you're not passionate about what you're doing. And that's part of the journey. And embrace it and enjoy every single moment. Because who knows? It might all not work out, but at least you can say, I tried, I put in the effort, I enjoyed every single minute of it. It didn't work out, but now, who knows? I'm running a PR agency specializing in motorsport. I'm doing sponsorship consultant, working with young drivers. I'm working for a team and doing administrative work, but I'm in motorsport and I love it. I
was going to say the beauty of learning I call it a high ticket skill. If you can charge a decent amount of money to go and do something, for instance, it could be content creating, it could be public speaking, it could be photography, it could be building websites, could be IT related, it could be absolutely anything. It's a high ticket skill at the end of the day. It's a sought after skill. And my opinion is with it, if you learn that for your driving career, you create essentially a business around it and just turn around and go and help people in exchange for sponsorship. All of a sudden, if it doesn't work out as a driver, like in any sport, there could be injuries, there could be massive setbacks, there could be absolutely anything. You have still got hold of that skill that you've learned and you can go and implement it wherever. And these teams are crying out for help and support. It's a challenging business running a racing team, but my gosh, if you can go travel the world or travel Europe or travel the UK, travel Canada, wherever you're listening from, if you can travel the country watching motorsport week in, week out, and you're earning from doing that as well, that's a dream job. Like, let's be honest, that's incredible. I love what I do because I get to go and spend the time in hospitality units and go and meet absolute winners. And yes, I've put the hard work into bringing in sponsorship for people, but my gosh, when I'm going to go and spend the whole summer traveling Europe, and I'm enjoying the hospitality units, I'm mingling with people who have made it in life, helping me, inspire me to become the next best thing going, and I absolutely love it. And for me, I'm just like, if you're involved in motorsport now as a youngster, if it doesn't work out, still go and enjoy yourself. Go and enjoy motorsport. Go enjoy that passion rather than just going, just fall back into everyday life like everyone else. Goes like, no, create your own path. And, I can't remember what the exact saying is, but if there's two paths, one's worn and one's not, create your own path straight down the middle. Don't follow someone else's path. Go and create your own path and be you. That's the most exciting journey in my eyes.
Yeah, I have a quote here from Ross Braun that I sticky on my monitor. And he says, luck is preparation waiting for an opportunity. And, so when people talk about being lucky, I always say, look, you have to be prepared. And the other thing is when the opportunity comes up, you got to take it. Take it. Paralysis by analysis is the worst thing that anybody can, and really in any situation, it's the worst thing that could possibly happen to you because you tend to overthink things. And how many times do things work out when you just said, okay, I'm in? Hey, you want to go to the race this weekend? I got some passes. I'm in. Because you don't know what's going to happen, who you're going to meet. And yeah, you're right. The people that you meet in motorsport are, for the most part, very very knowledgeable, very passionate, and usually very successful. So you anything that you get from that interaction is going to help you both internally in your confidence level and in your skill set, and it'll help you obviously in networking and meeting people. Those are all valuable things. So take advantage of every opportunity you can. And I do it all the time. I mean, I have my little Motorsport Prospect polos that I wear when I go to the tracks, and you'd be amazed at how many people will say, "Hey, Mark, I follow you on LinkedIn. I follow you on Facebook. Come on over here. Do you want some cold water? It's hot out there." Next thing you're chatting with somebody in the paddock, and one thing leads to another, and then you meet more people, and then you collect cards and you collect names, and you follow up on them with them, and who knows how that'll work out. But that's the fun of the journey.
I mean, there's so many points I can throw at you here, Mark, because it is very much your network is your net worth, or as Sir Richard Branson always says, is that if someone offers you an opportunity, say yes and work it out later. I mean, I'm full of them. I could go all day. I'm going to be honest with you, but it's one of those where actually anything could happen. You just need to say yes, throw yourself in, and if you get something wrong, at least you're learning. You either win or you learn. It's something that Nelson Mandela said. It's I either win or I learn. I can't lose in this situation. If it doesn't go to plan, I find out what went wrong and then implement something else for the next time. It's as simple as that. But Mark, I'm looking at the time, and I've loved this podcast so far. I just want it to keep going. I could do another at least 40 minutes, and I'm sure the listeners might drop off if we had added another 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But one question that we always ask people at the end, and I'm sure this will open up even more discussions, but if you could spend an hour with someone, whether they're alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Well, it's funny because you mentioned somebody that I actually am a big admirer of, and that's Richard Branson. I've read all his books. There's a perfect example of somebody who enjoys the journey, and a lot of what we've talked about, that's very much his philosophy. To spend an hour with him would be a lot of fun, I think. And what I always admired about him is he makes business fun, because I've never been interested in business as a concept per se. It would have to be something that I find interesting. Motorsport I love, so the business of motorsport obviously I embrace. But Richard Branson, for whatever reason, can take any business, selling toilets, and make it an adventure and a glorious opportunity and a lot of fun. So I think that's somebody who and of course, if I can have the hour with him on his private island, so much the better. But yeah, no, there's somebody I think I could learn a lot from. And what I find Branson is so good at is building up the confidence of the people that he engages with. Probably just after reading his books or watching him on being interviewed, you walk out of there thinking you can do anything. I mean, there's absolutely nothing I cannot accomplish. If I just have a little bit of, gusto, and I just put it all into it with a smile on my face, what could possibly, I could pretty much do anything I want. And we all need that boost every once in a while. Because as fun as this all is, and as much hard work as it is, there are times where, look, we're human, where you say, oof, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, and I don't know if I can really make this. And, and then, I always say you embrace those as well, right? You embrace that, you don't push it away, you accept it, but then the important thing is you don't wallow in it. And you just, at some point you say, okay, I've had my doubts. I put those aside, and I'm plunging back in, and I'm ready to rock and roll. And normally, I always say a good night's sleep usually puts that to bed. And Richard, or yeah, just read a bit of Richard Branson, because that will definitely stoke you for doing whatever it is you want to do. It will definitely push you to do it and enjoy it.
Perfect. What a great answer.
I mean, I love Richard Branson anyway. I just think his. I heard a story about him where he was sitting around this table with all of his advisors, and he was listening away, and he was sitting there, and someone asked him a question, and he was just looking at them blankly, and his number one advisor turned to him and went, "Richard, do you know what they're talking about when they say gross and net profit?" And he turns around and says, "No, not a clue. I don't have a clue what they're on about." And it just puts the world into perspective that someone who is an incredible entrepreneur, like, multiple massive businesses, create a whole movement with Virgin, not just a small segment of that, but a whole movement, to then turn around and go, not a clue what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It just puts things into perspective, and you think, wow. So yeah, he is he'll be an unbelievable person, and obviously having learning difficulties, etc., as he's come through as well. It's just means that you can do anything that you really want to do.
He seems to be an approachable billionaire.
100%.
And yeah, I mean, no, I think that definitely would be the guy, because yeah, his philosophy is just do it, just 100%. Go out and do it, put yourself out there.
No, brilliant.
Amazing.
No, well, that's a fantastic answer. Thank you so much. But Mark, before we wrap this up, where can people find you? Where's the best place to go and find you?
Best place is motorsportprospects.com. We also, I have a newsletter that comes out weekly that summarizes everything that was on the blog the week before. So if you haven't been able to keep up, that's a great way to stay connected. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I think that's pretty much my number one place to connect with and reach out to people. I do post on Facebook. There's a Motorsport Prospects Facebook group, on Instagram, on Twitter, X, whatever it's called. I'm not as active on that social media. LinkedIn is really that's the place. I've connected with you both through that. I've made so many connections. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting, I believe, this afternoon with somebody who does financial planning and works with a lot of race drivers and wants to connect. And so, LinkedIn is, if you don't go directly to the site, motorsportprospects.com, LinkedIn, Mark Boudreau, definitely LLB is definitely the place to connect with me.
No, we'll put all your links in the description anyway, so people can click on that and go straight there. But Mark, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've absolutely loved having this. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sure we'll do a lot more work together moving forward, especially as our dreams and our goals are aligned.
Yes, keep doing what you're doing. It's exciting. What is it? A high tide lifts all boats. So yeah, we definitely let's keep in touch, and where the opportunities are to work together, absolutely, let's make it happen.
No, brilliant.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you for all our listeners. Please do click like, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends and family, whoever you think may benefit from listening to this. Please do share it. But once again, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.